The Earnestly Speaking podcast is a show that is founded on free-flowing conversation and may at times venture into mature subjects. Listener discretion is advised.
Yeah, Earnestly Speaking podcast. Let's get it. I'm a giant in New York, in Miami carry heat. So much more in store, my product can flood the street. Opinion Nation Godfather, CEO. Puff in the late 90s, gon' see me blow. Oh. Got my hustle on, no imitation of that. Army of untouchables, Opinion Nation staff. Never an off season, homie, check the numbers. Heart throb in my own right, supplying southern comfort. Earnestly speaking, my ego is well fed. Earnestly speaking, you're too evil and no threat. See, I'm like a hurricane, you're a mild breeze. Earnestly speaking, leaving Eli a dynasty. Shake!
Earnestly Podcast coming to you October 3rd, 2024. How you guys doing? As you guys see me here on the screen with my fitted hoodie here, my New York Mets hoodie. My boys are in the playoffs. Although Game 3 tonight decides the series between Milwaukee and New York. We were 2 innings away from advancing to playing the Philadelphia Phillies on Saturday, but the Milwaukee Brewers made a nice comeback in the 8th inning last night. Heartbreaking game, but overall, very proud of this Mets team. I actually wanted to record a podcast on Monday night after they split the series against Atlanta on Monday to clinch playoff berth. Wasn't able to do it because of time consumption, and also the quick turnaround between then and then the Milwaukee series starting the day after. And Mondays for me, I really don't record at all. That's typically my work days and also family day as well. And it wasn't conducive to me to do that at the time. And then, everything else, I figured that just wait till the series is over. But now 1-1. And like I said, a lot of folks have been very critical of me and my Mets fandom this year. Of all the teams I've ever rooted for in my life, the New York Mets are the one I've been the longest fan of the longest. I've been a fan of baseball since 1988. I've been a Met fan from that time. That's coming out of the 86 era with, Dwight Gooden and Darryl Strawberry and, Ron Darling and all those guys. And, if you're a Met fan, you know how the story goes. You know that it's stressful. It is, you have to have a strong stomach to be a Met fan. We've seen the heartbreaks, we've seen the disasters, we've seen some success. We've seen World Series. I mean, look, I was alive for 86. I didn't get to experience 86. I was 6 years old. Was this last time the Mets won a World Series. I have, however, seen the Mets go to the World Series twice in my lifetime, in 2000 against the Yankees, and of course in 2015 against the Royals. And those are really fun times. In fact, this sweater is actually the shout out to my boy Mackie B, who bought us for me back in 2015. He was just on the podcast actually recently too. This was the sweater from the hoodie from that run in 2015, which is one of my favorite runs of all time. I mean, sports team, they didn't get the job done. It was a fun year and all together. But the Mets, being a Mets fan is also knowing that stress is a big part of it, and trust or lack of trust is a big part of it. And I'll stand 10 toes down what I said early in the year. I said in the podcast, I told friends of this, mine's this also, that 6 games in, about 2 weeks into the season, I was done. This team was a disaster. They were 11 games under 500 by middle of May. And then there was actually a 3-week period where I stopped watching because I was like, you know what? We know how the story goes with the Mets. Expectations are high, and then they let down. And then there was a couple weeks where I just, I would still check the scores, but I wouldn't watch. And then there was a time, I think, between May and early June that was like I kind of checked out, sort of. Like I kept one eye open, but wasn't really invested. Excuse me. And then I started noticing by middle and late June that they were like, only 3 games behind the wild card. And I'm like, how'd this happen? And this momentum started building and building and building. I ended up going on a winning streak. I think it got to 10 games, where it was 8 games, however it was, but they kept winning a lot of games to the point where they were actually in the wild card race. And I figured, okay, well, that's cool and all, but there's also 8 different teams also involved in the wild card race, so 3 spots open. how you gonna get in there? And this momentum kept building and building through the summertime. And I started watching, and I was starting to get excited, but I was also apprehensive to get too confident too, because again, New York Mets baseball, you know how this thing flies. But we're here, and it's funny. So the Monday game. So you guys remember the scenario on Monday for the Mets to get in the playoffs, because they played 2 against Atlanta day after the season ended. And the reason those 2 games even existed was because they were supposed to play last week, but the game got moved due to Hurricane Helene, which by the way, thoughts and prayers to all folks affected by that tragic storm, and especially in Asheville, North Carolina, and Georgia, and even Florida, and and South Carolina, all that. So, prayers and thoughts with those people there, especially. But they moved the game, the Tuesday and Wednesday games, to this week as a doubleheader. And what ended up happening is that the Mets and Braves were actually tied, at the end of the season on Sunday. So they had to play 2 games. And the scenarios were this: if they both split, if one team wins each game, they're both in the playoffs. If one team loses both games, then they're out, and the Diamondbacks are in. So I watched the first game, most of the game at work, the first game, the one the Mets won. And they were down most of the game 3-0. Okay. And then I was leaving work. And as I was about to leave the building, they made the comeback and went up 6-3. So I figured, okay, eighth inning, cool. All right, I have time. I can get home, probably watch the closeout, watch Diaz come and close it out. They brought Diaz in the 8th inning, Edwin Diaz, and then he proceeds to blow the lead, and the Braves go up 7-6. And all this is happening while I'm driving my car, and I have the game on my phone on my car, and I was so distracted. Look, I'm not even advocating for this though, but don't watch games while you're driving, especially games that matter like this. I made it home safe, but still not very smart. And then I get home right in time. The Mets are up on top of the 9th, and as I'm parking the car, there's one man on first, I think it is, and Francisco Lindor, the MVP of this team, and number 2 in the MVP race, in my opinion, behind Shohei Ohtani, hits a 2-run shot. And I go nuts. And I race inside the house. Well, 1 run. We go back in the house. Go in the house. I get put on the TV. My wife's asleep upstairs because she's taking a nap. My kids are downstairs playing video games. Turn on TV, and then they're like watching it with me because they see Dad's excited and all this stuff. And we watch the 9th inning, and then Mets close it out. Diaz closes it out. That was a stressful time. That game literally took about a couple years off my life. But yeah, I'm very proud of this team. This team's very resilient, a very resilient team. And I'm very proud of what they accomplished. Just getting here. Now, I'm praying to God to close out the series because Milwaukee was what happens, obviously. Winner of the series plays Philadelphia on Saturday. I've already been telling folks this. If the Mets win this series with Milwaukee, this series is Philadelphia in the playoffs, in the second round, in the divisional round of the playoffs, NLDS, that is my World Series. Because you guys know, of any team in baseball, there's no team I hate more in baseball than Philadelphia Phillies. They're my biggest rival. Their biggest rival. If the Mets win that series, hypothetically, they win the series against the Phillies, assuming they get through Milwaukee tonight, that is my World Series. Like, I don't care if they win the National League, if they win the World Series. I say that, but I want them to win, obviously. But to me, it would be fulfilling enough for the Mets to beat the Phillies in a 5-game set, for obvious reasons. Number 1, rivalry. Number 2, the people who I'm very close to that are Phillies fans, and we talk shit back and forth. I'm in for that. Absolutely. So that will be my personal World Series. I will take that to go to NLCS, and I'll be happy with that. If our trek ended in NLCS, I'll be okay with that, knowing we beat the Philadelphia Phillies and cost them a chance to win a World Series. So, but all in all, this has been a phenomenal year for the Mets, a roller coaster year. That game was indicative of what this season has been for the Mets. But I'm very happy. I'm very happy with everything accomplished here thus far. Now, staying in New York, and a different sport, though, the New York Giants, 2024 New York Giants were 4 games in to the season. Again, another disappointing year. They've shown signs of life. Malik Neighbors, the receiver's been phenomenal. The defense has been really, really good. They've had games they could have won. Outside the Minnesota game that they lost in week 1, which got blown doors off. But of course, that looks like a good loss now because Minnesota's 4-0. The Giants could have beat the Commanders. which obviously, if they had a kicker, they would have won that game. And which, now in hindsight, right now through 4 games, the Commanders look really good. Probably NFC East favorites. Probably, I still think the Eagles are favorites, but that's just my opinion. And then they lost. Who else lost to after that? They beat the Browns after that. They beat the Browns. And then after that, they lost last week, Thursday, to the Cowboys. Again, they probably should have won. Had they scored 1 touchdown in that damn game, they would have won that game. This has been a very disappointing year for the Giants, of course. No one's surprised by that. Daniel Jones has showed some signs of life, but again, to me, it's not enough. Like, you're getting paid $4 million a year. You got to show that you're a $4 million quarterback. He's clearly not that. I give this season for probably a C minus D plus, because there are where there should be, I guess, right now record wise. So I'm not surprised. So C minus, but D plus, because they had a chance to win some of those games. Had they won a Dallas game and 2-2, I'd be a lot more satisfied by that. You know what I mean? So C minus D plus. I'll go D plus. Still disappointing because the way things played out, obviously in the last couple weeks, had they won at least one of those games, had won the Commanders game, they'd be 3-1. So they could be easily 3-1 now if they just had a kicker in that Commanders game and then scored 1 touchdown in the Cowboys game. In a game they outplayed the Cowboys, by the way, for the record. So that's what I get the Giants a D plus right now. It looks like that, and it feels like that. This is gonna be Dan Jones last year, I think. This team, honestly, but that's just that with the New York Giants. Stay in the NFL here too. Also, we're hearing a lot of rumors about Davante Adams and his future. He requested a trade from the Raiders earlier this week, rather. I'm going to lay out 5 teams. There are 5 teams I believe should be aggressive and go after Davante Adams, a guy who I still believe, is still a top 5 receiver in the league. I argue top 3. He's just in the wrong situation. God bless Gardner Minshew, but he's not the answer in Vegas. There are 5 teams I've identified as, teams that should be on the phone right now. I should be on the phone 2 days ago, the minute this news broke on the Vegas Raiders. Adams saying requesting a trade, and Raiders saying they would take some offers. I believe the report is that they want at least a 2nd round pick for him, which I think he's worth it. He's still young enough. He's still dominant enough. I think the teams who are probably a receiver away from getting over the top. My 5 teams. Now the first 2 are pretty obvious. Okay, the first 2 teams are obvious for me. The New York Jets, obviously top of the line for me. A reunion, obviously, with Aaron Rodgers. Another guy that can take pressure off of Garrett Wilson, who's having a very subpar year thus far. You get him there, and the Jets are already all in anyway. People say, "Oh, the draft picks." No, you have Aaron Rodgers. You have this team. It's really a 2-year window, maybe a year, depending on how Rodgers feels after this year. But it's a 2-year window of the score. Go all in. These guys have won a Super Bowl since 1969. Come on now. He hasn't been to the AFC title game since 1999 or 98. So you're going all in, okay? Go for broke here at this point. You might as well go for broke. So the Jets should be the number 1 team, also, in my opinion, on that phone trying to get him down. And especially if they lose to Minnesota this week in London, you damn right you have Aaron Rodgers on that phone trying to get a hold of Davante Adams to become a New York Jet. My second team on the list is another obvious one. And that's the Kansas City Chiefs. And for circumstantial reasons, why the Chiefs? They are banged the hell up. Okay, they're gonna lose another. Rasheed Rice, the best receiver, probably out for the year. There's been no discussion and there's no announcement as to how long he'll be out for. Definitely out this week, probably for the foreseeable future. That injury looked pretty bad on Sunday against the Chargers. He's probably gonna be out for close to the year, if anything. The Chiefs, getting them home with another weapon there. Now, the thing is, it's very doubtful what happened because the Raiders and Chiefs are massive rivals, and it's not very, kosher, when to call that, for teams or rivals to trade in the division. Which, by the way, I find that extremely overrated. Let me tell you why. You're still, in a lot of ways, hypothetically hurting the other team anyway. You're giving that team, or sorry, it's not giving that team. You're actually making that team less than as a result. Let me phrase this right. By making them give up assets, you're actually hypothetically weakening that team. So I find that storyline, honestly, about not trading in division extremely overrated in my opinion. Extremely overrated. If I'm the Chiefs, if I'm the Raiders, you could probably get a second round, and if you really try hard enough, you might get a first round for Davante Adams. If I'm the Chiefs, why not? Again, Pat Mahomes, stay on the gas. A chance to go three-peat. This can actually make it happen. You know what I'm saying? So if I'm the Chiefs, I would definitely, go after Davante Adams. For this window, how long it has with this the core of Kelsey and Mahomes and Andy Reid, of course. Now, I have 3 more teams here. That may shock you guys. The third team here, Washington Commanders. Think about this. Washington Commanders now 3-1 in the division, NFC East. I don't know the cap situation necessarily, but I imagine it's fairly healthy. You have a rookie quarterback right now, Jane Daniels, who's having a phenomenal year thus far. How about you add to that roster? How about you go for broke at this point in the short term? It won't cost you much. A third rounder, second rounder for a guy like Davante Adams, who can still probably have at least another 3 years in the tank of being a tippy top guy. Why not? And also, what you're doing there also is that you're actually taking the window of Jane Daniels' rookie contract and adding to it while you could now before they pay him a couple of years. So if I'm the Commanders, why not go for broke there? Why not? And I don't think going for broke. You could probably fetch a second or third rounder for him, honestly, and it's worth it. Who gives a crap? Draft picks are draft picks are just draft picks, and they're not anything until you know what you have. Why not? So I would go for that if I'm the Commanders. Also too. My fourth team here. May shock some of you guys here. A reunion with the Green Bay Packers. Think about this now. The only reason Adams left was because Aaron Rodgers was in limbo about his future in Green Bay. Think about that. And obviously, Rodgers did leave eventually a year later. But the Packers are in a good spot now. Young team, good roster. Jordan Love is ascending to be a top 10 quarterback in the league now. You add Davante Adams to that team that I've already said on record, and I'm saying it now, that I see them being in the NFC title game this coming January. Absolutely, you go after Davante Adams if you could. If you make the numbers work, obviously. So a Packers reunion, I would definitely sign for that. And my fifth team here, this may shock some of you guys too also, given their cap issues, but hear me out. And it's another division rival, the LA Chargers. Justin Herbert, top 10 quarterback in the league. You add him to Justin Herbert, they're already thin as a receiver now. That's a lot of it due to the contracts and dead money in the cap. But if you can make it work out, and you add Justin Herbert, add Davante Adams to Justin Herbert in that squad with Jim Harbaugh, you're ready to have now morph this team to more of a ball control, run heavy squad. But you have the threat now of Davante Adams on the wing. That could be wonders. I think the Chargers are a really good team when healthy. They're going to be one of the teams I believe are going to be in a wild card situation when it's all said and done. You add Adams to the team. Why not? Why not? So Jets, Chiefs, Commanders, Packers, and Chargers are the 5 teams I believe are really good fits. There's a couple other teams I think could probably make a phone call. Atlanta Falcons maybe make a phone call. Maybe the Bucks. I'm thinking of other teams that can use a receiver that's kind of in play that can pull over the top. Look at the teams like that. Look at teams like the Colts maybe can do that, something like that. The Buffalo Bills. What about Josh Allen, Buffalo Bills? So that's another team I would look into that to Adams. So those are my 5 teams, though. Again, Jets, Chiefs, Commanders, Packers, and Chargers that should be making phone calls for the Davante Adams. All right, one last thing here before we get to Marc Francois on the podcast. This week, lots of passings this week. Lots of deaths, noble deaths this week in the world of Hollywood and the world of sports. 2 to me that stood out in sports, especially the first one on Monday, Dikembe Mutombo, Hall of Fame center, for the Nuggets, for the Hawks, Sixers, passed away of age 58 of brain cancer. He knew he was sick a couple years ago, but it was kind of low key. Mutombo was a great man. I believe 6-time All-Star, obviously Hall of Famer. Great dude though. One of the greatest ambassadors of the NBA in NBA history. His humanitarian work goes noticed, very much noticed, and very much praised, and what he's done for the sport and spreading the love of the game, and also his passion in the game. His passion in the game. I remember watching that. People forget this now, but it's been 30 years. But that 8 seed Nuggets team that upset the number 1 seed Seattle Supersonics, who were the favorites that year to actually win a title that year, because that was the year Michael Jordan actually retired. And them upsetting them in the first round of playoffs in 5 games, and that image of Mutombo holding the ball in his hand and squeezing it, and I watched that game live. I was 14 years old when that game happened, and I remember that game. I remember that being a big deal in Mutombo. I watched Mutombo in college at Georgetown. We played with Alonzo Mourning, and he was a phenomenal. He was obviously more of a one-sided player. He was a defensive player. Not saying he was an offensive liability, but he was a guy that is known for blocking shots and doing the no, that thing, the finger wag. He was a great man. He was a great dude, though. Like his spirit always. That's what stuck to me with Mutombo for years, is that his positive spirit for life, loving life, and hearing all these tributes this week too. Also, man, it really made the brothers tear up a little bit. So rest in peace to Dikembe Mutombo, age 58. We lost him Monday, and then of course Pete Rose, controversial now. Pete Rose, the Major League Baseball's all-time hits leader, who should be in the Hall of Fame. Obviously, why he's not in the Hall of Fame, because of the gambling situation in the late 80s. As manager of the Reds, he was caught gambling on his own team. And I get all that. I understand why he's not in the Hall of Fame. And he probably will get in posthumously, which is the sad part. And I think the only reason why he probably didn't get in recently is that there's been rumors, and I don't know if it's rumors, it's been talk and word that he never apologized for the gambling. And he was never apologetic or never sympathetic to that. What he did was wrong. And I think the baseball writers and baseball itself holds that against him. Pete Rose is the greatest hitter of all time. He's the all-time hits leader. I don't think anyone's breaking that record at all. But Pete Rose also the broadcaster. In the little I saw of him in the mid-aughts on Fox, I would never say he's better than Charles Barkley, but if there was ever a comp to Charles Barkley in the baseball realm of studio shows and studio analysts and commentators, Pete Rose was the closest one, and he was hysterical. There's a lot of good videos out there. I was going to post some today on the show, but saving all the time. Pete Rose was one of a kind, and I hope he gets in the Hall of Fame when it's all said and done. Obviously, you won't be able to see it because he's no longer with us, but it's still a sad situation altogether. So that's just that. All right, let's all bring in Marc Francois as we discuss the vice presidential debate and more on the podcast. All right, we're here. We're joined by Marc Francois, of course, contributor to the podcast, friend, activist. You know it. Election time is a month away, so how we ramp up these appearances on the show as every 4 years, especially too. We get locked in. Since 2016, of course. Mark, what's going on, brother?
Not too much, man. Just I'm learning what ragweed season is on Long Island. What ragweed season is?
The hell is that?
Apparently, the springtime isn't the only time allergies are bullshit, and I don't even usually have seasonal allergies. But yeah, dude, my nose and eyes the last 2 weeks just are going crazy. I guess as the leaves are turning and all of that, ragweed goes crazy with its pollen or something like that. Again, not something we have really where I grew up, so this is all new to me. I was on the phone with a friend of mine, and he was like, "Man, you sound like you got a cold or something." I'm like, "Yeah, I think I do." He goes, "It's probably." I was like, "Yeah, but it's really just like my nose is stuffed up. The stuff that's coming out isn't weird colors, And he's like, "Oh, bro, that's ragweed." And I'm like, "Huh?" He goes, "Yeah, man, I've been dying for 2 weeks."
Yeah, I never heard. I'm in New York. I never heard that shit before, so I couldn't tell you.
Well, you don't deal with it in the city.
I have my own allergy issues though, so I have my own allergy issues here in Florida. Yeah. That's enough to deal with. Anyway, so we had a vice presidential debate 2 days ago.
Something resembling one.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you. We'll talk about it in a second. I'm going to play a quick clip. And this quickly for the folks who didn't watch it, listen to the podcast, for example, Washington Post put out a 1 minute collage of the best moments.
It's like the MLB and NBA like 1 minute highlight reels and the
yeah,
recaps
exactly.
one.
Yeah, so here's a 1 minute clip real quick, and we'll react to the debate now.
I got a 17-year-old, and he witnessed a shooting at a community center playing volleyball.
Well, I didn't know that your 17-year-old witnessed a shooting. I'm sorry about that, and I hope that he's doing okay. So. Christ have mercy. One of them is actually very dear to me, and I know she's.
I laughed when he said "Christ have mercy," and like in real time. I'm sorry, I did.
That she felt like if she hadn't had that abortion, that it would have destroyed her life. The specific question, Governor, you gave me a slogan as a response.
It's not the case. It's not true. That's not what the law says. It's still saying he didn't lose the election. I would just ask that. Did he lose the 2020 election?
It's something that Kamala Harris created.
No mics.
Gentlemen, the audience can't hear you because your mics are cut. We have so much we want to get to. Thank you for explaining the legal process.
Well, I've enjoyed tonight's debate, and I think there was a lot of commonality here. And I'm sympathetic to misspeaking on things, and I think I might have with the senator.
Me too, man.
There's one.
All right. So what I took out of that whole thing was very civil conversation between the two guys here. And I'll tell you, in this Trump era, when all we've gotten was nothing but chaos, for the last 8-9 years of this cycle, with Donald Trump taking all the oxygen out of the room. I will say, and look, I do not like JD Vance whatsoever. I think he's a fucking liar, all that good stuff, especially about the abortion issue. We'll get that in a second. But in terms of the optics, I thought he did himself a little more goodwill, because given the fact that he's the worst VP running mate in modern history by virtue of the polls. Very civil, very common. I thought it was a good debate, actually. That was mostly policy driven, to policy focus. Mark, your thoughts? I know you're gonna fuck with this now. You're gonna get like Marky Mark on this one.
All right, so number one, watching you go through that mental and linguistic gymnastics to describe that as a good debate is the greatest indicator that the bar is on the fucking floor. Mm-hmm. Like, the bar is on the floor. Yeah. They managed not to throw things. Congratulations. So we'll go with Vance first, because my analysis of his is quicker. He simply he sounded polite, sure. But he didn't tell he didn't make like a single true statement. Literally everything he said was a lie, was an easily disprovable lie, an outright falsehood, or didn't align with his or President Trump's record. Just on and on and on. It's like, I don't even want to start listing them off, because it was literally every single issue, every single point. The comment I made to my mom afterward is, if I took a transcript of any of his 2-minute answers and turned them in as an essay to my 6th grade language arts teacher, Mrs. Firestone would have given me a D and made me have my mom sign the essay. Because he would make the opening statement, and then he would provide, he's like, oh yeah, we're going to do the thing you're asking me. And then give you a bunch of platitudes and fluff, or make a statement about immigrants that was not true, or B, tie it back to some victory that the president did that he didn't, like when a good example would be when he talked about his family being protected from pre-existing condition denial from insurance because of President Trump and all of his great work. Mr. Senator, pre-existing condition denial became a thing in 2010 during President Obama's administration, 7 years before Mr. Trump was in office. And I mean, that was just one. And that was literally every single issue. It was something like that. The other thing is, I just find JD Vance to be an exceptionally unlikable, disingenuous, smug piece of shit. Like, just to look at him. He has dead eyes and a fake smile. And every time the camera would like show him waiting to speak, as one of the moderators was speaking to him, his tone was like, ugh, why is this woman
very smarmy? Very smarmy.
It was very smarmy, very condescending. and like I said, disingenuous. Like nothing about him comes across as honest or forthright or that he's any kind of person of integrity. And that is further proven by the fact that he simply sat up there and lied to the American people for 2 fucking hours.
For me, it's very
Everything
simple.
is a lie.
For me, it's very simple. Because even though I would agree, these debates are about optics more than anything else. These folks look at the okay, do they look presidential? Do they deliver a speech?
Really quick, he does the same thing that President Trump does. He lies with such volume and such rapidity that you literally can't even stop them from doing it in real time, short of just interrupting them and telling them to be quiet.
But I keep telling my conservative friends this all the time. Also, for me, it's simple. For me, I don't twist myself in knots for one reason only. And there's 2 reasons really advanced here. Even as well as he did in the debate, and the other polls show that he at least drew even with Tim Walz on this. We'll see how that goes. Some may have him ahead. Whatever. 2 things for me
it matters.
Right. It doesn't matter. But 2 things for me is the reason why he will never get my support. The abortion issue, number one, he lied about. He wants a federal ban. He said it on record. You can't just change your mind now.
It was on his campaign website when he ran for the Senate. Literally. End abortion. Yeah. Big old fat fucking headline in red letters.
Anything else beyond that is just fluff. It doesn't matter. You said you want to do that. It's your right. I disagree with you. That's why I don't support you. And number 2, the biggest one for me is the reason why when people ask me why I won't vote for Trump, I'm legitimately insulted by that, because I keep telling you, once you try to overturn the Constitution, I don't give a fuck who you are. You could be Barack Obama, Joe Biden, Bill Clinton, John Kennedy. You try to overturn the election, you're fucked in my eyes. To me, you're dead to me.
You've stopped. You've stopped looking or sounding like an autocratic despot. You've become an autocratic despot, and we don't fuck with you.
And the fact that you can't even answer the question, if Donald Trump lost the election in 2020, and your response is we got to move forward to the future, bullshit. Because that is our president right now. Because he still hasn't conceded the fucking election.
Yeah. And what is very apparent from the Republican side, seeing a prominent member of the GOP get up there and talk, and watching the way he moved and twisted and bent over backwards, what's very clear is that the Republican leadership is very prepared to run the Project 2025 playbook the minute Trump is off the stage. Whether it's because he becomes medically incapacitated, they finally convince him to retire, he passes away, whatever it is, everything is basically just get it ready, let Trump do what Trump does, because we don't have the will or the ability to disconnect his base of support from him and just get them focused on our ideas. So we're just going to sit here and say whatever we have to say to appease him and the voters he carries. And then once he's out of the way, we run the Fourth Reich Republican handbook.
Sounds about right. Sounds about what sounds plausible, should I say? Obviously, we're going to see if that ever happening. Like I said, I think the VP debate is non-consequential anyway, historically speaking. Mm-hmm. But I think the VP debates could hurt you, though. Could hurt a ticket, though.
Yeah, and I think in the case of the Harris ticket, we'll get to that when we talk about Governor Walz. But referring to him as Governor Walz kind of takes me right into my point. One of the things that somebody can let me know in the comments or on TikTok, or maybe I watched The West Wing too many times or something, but it's my understanding that, for example, unless you have been a member of the same body or held the same position, it is not considered proper decorum to refer to someone of title by their name. And all night, Senator Vance continued to call Governor Walz Tim and man. And it's my understanding you would only call Governor Walz Tim if you had both served in the Senate together, because you're colleagues. But that governor is a state level position, senator is a federal level position. It's like maybe it's okay between senators and members of the House because they're all members of Congress. But it's my understanding that a senator is not calling a governor by their first name pretty much ever, especially on a debate stage.
I don't remember if this happened or not. I did watch it last night. Did Governor Walz call him senator?
Almost every time, at least I can recall.
Okay.
It was either Senator Vance, or Mr. Senator, something like that.
Okay.
Or Mr. Vance. It was always on the list of acceptable titles.
Yeah.
But yeah, it just irked me because it goes to that larger point of just that Republicans have no principle, no respect, no decorum. They talk about being the party of law and order and obedience in the church and everything. But what's apparent from their behavior is that they have no respect for people other than the people who walk, talk, and look like them.
Yeah.
Tim
Walz, go ahead.
It's just that simple. Yeah. You're either one of us, you're either with us or you're not. And if you're not with us, we will dehumanize you in as much as we need to get you out of our way. Whether that's at a voting booth or a concentration camp, it matters not to us as long as we get what we want.
Yeah. Tim Walz, though, looked very nervous, though, early on.
All right, I'm going to just say a couple of things about Tim Walz and then we can kind of pick apart the nitty gritty because my overarching take is kind of nuanced.
Okay,
so
go ahead.
Let me just spit it all out. I think most of his performance was a little limp-wristed. I think he held his ground on
what does that mean? What does that mean? Exactly?
Like he or not limp-wristed, but like he limped into like he wasn't punching. You know what I mean? Like he was punching with like his wrist and his arms, like he wasn't lined up. He didn't mean it. Like, you know, when you see kids like try to throw hands at each other and it just looks ridiculous and silly, like they're not really throwing punches. That's how most of his answers felt. But I think there's a good reason for that. He did give great answers and rebuttals to pretty much all the big issue questions. But he was entirely too civil to people who unapologetically deny election results and tried to interrupt the peaceful transition of power. He was way too polite about that. And a number of other issues. He kept saying, well, you know, I think we agree on that. No, the fuck you don't. Stop it.
Commonality, they call that?
Yeah, it was a little too much. It was a little too much common ground seeking. It's like, no, these people want to end democracy. It's not out of bounds to say that. However, my suspicion is that Governor Walz, his mission and his objective obviously is to help counterbalance some of the obvious detractors from independent voters, particularly independent white voters and Republican voters sitting on the fence about specifically voting for President Trump. He is sort of the bait to bring them over the line on election day. And so what I could see as being sort of the campaign strategy there when they're all in their smoke-filled rooms is like, all right, the vice president needs to be out there pushing the policy, smacking Donald Trump around the stage, blah, 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 blah. But Governor Walz, we need you to pacify Kansas. We need you to represent our message. But if we're going to get Mima and all these Trump voters and whatnot to consider doing the right thing and voting for our ticket, we need to not scare them too much. And if Governor Walz comes across looking like a black flag waving socialist, that's going to completely defeat the purpose. So while his answers to me were weak and lacking substance on a number of issues, like to what my voting interests are, sure. But then again, so are Vice President Harris's for what we're talking about mine. But I think if Governor Walz's mission is to bring in the independent voters, to bring in, the white voters who would scoff at Harris, to bring in people who previously voted for President Trump or might even still be intending to vote for President Trump, if that was the mission, I think he did it, and I think he did it pretty well.
Yeah, I think he wanted to also show
on substance, he won the debate, but he didn't hit very hard to win it.
He wasn't very.
He won points. He didn't win a knockout.
Yeah, I think he wanted to also make it about policy-driven stuff and more about what we as a party. I think that's the thing also too.
Yeah,
the Kamala Harris ticket is still trying to define itself too, also to the electorate. Remember, they just came in this thing a couple months ago. So,
and at the risk of being reductive, like her caricature is a bit more like the no-nonsense auntie who is not afraid to slap one of your uncles for saying something out of pocket to her. And she's the prosecutor and the cop. So like, let her be the bad cop, and Governor Coach Walls can be the golly gee, oh shucks, good cop.
Yeah, exactly. It's a nice little balance to have there, though. Nice little balance.
That's what I saw. Like I said, to what my specific voting interests are, and like the issue. Like, for example, I thought the hand job they gave to the IDF, or the Governor Walls gave to the IDF, right out of the gate, first sentences, was disgusting. Those were talking points that didn't hold water on October 8th, and they were basically straight out of the like Bibi Netanyahu preferred statement list. But it was gross. I mean, frankly, anything he had to say about Palestine and Gaza and Lebanon was awful. And I had to like plug my ears for that part. And then, of course, I don't even say anything about JD Vance because God knows he didn't say anything positive about Palestinians. So, that part of it was frustrating, but I didn't expect any more than that. If Vice President Harris is the bad cop in that mix, and she is not making bold statements about Palestine and ceasefire and ending armaments and whatnot, then you can't expect Governor Walz to do it. And one sidebar I'll note, just as we mentioned that, right before Hurricane Helene hit and UN Week was happening, and all the protests were erupting here in New York, with the Israeli diplomats in town, $8.7 billion in additional armaments was granted to Israel.
Right.
It was announced today that FEMA has a $9 billion shortfall of what they need in order to address the fallout of Hurricane Helene, at least on what they're budgeting right now.
Oh my God.
So we literally just gave them Asheville, North Carolina's money, and Georgia's money, and Florida. It's
so complicated. It's
just so complicated to blow apart children.
Could you argue also Ukraine, money to Ukraine also is part of that too? Also, could you argue that also?
I mean, of course it is, because I mean,
without politicizing it, people are gonna say, "Oh, liberals are Ukraine." Yeah,
Well, no, and I mean, it really doesn't matter, because when it was Katrina, it was Iraq and Afghanistan, and
nothing new, right? It's nothing new, right?
Yeah, it's like insert conflict blank, subtract disaster blank, and I bet you have an almost 1-to-1, if not 10-to-1 on the war side.
That's kind of, but to be honest with you, that's kind of where, like, for a simple voter who doesn't follow like you and I every day, where Donald Trump's appeal comes through is that he's a nationalist first, America first, and you hear shit like this, the America first argument becomes more.
Except he'd have given Bibi Netanyahu $12
billion. No. We know the truth.
And on his budget, FEMA would have a shortfall of $14 billion.
We know the truth. Because on Israel, there's bipartisan support on the Israel thing on both parties. That is not a partisan.
He'd be like, "Yo, Bibi, you want some nukes? Just do it."
Yes,
once,
exactly.
Bruh.
So again, but again,
quit wasting all your time and money. Right. Just drop one.
Exactly. But Mark, again, you and I are guys that follow this every day. The average Tom or the average Jane who is working a job, not following MSNBC or Fox News every day, they see that, they hear that, and say, well, and this guy is saying America first, it's going to resonate to people like them.
Yeah.
That's just a reality.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm always sympathetic to people who may not have the same political views I do, at the very least, be, inclusive in the way to at least get understanding where they are. And obviously you present
Yeah, and to the people who would just immediately start going, well, yeah, but that's Biden and Harris giving that money to Israel. President Trump obliterated FEMA when he was in office. He obliterated FEMA and he completely handcuffed and kneecapped their ability to do anything in regards to disaster response. Oh, and lest we forget the pandemic.
Exactly. Dismantling the pandemic office. What do you call it?
Yeah. And then the virus hits.
Yeah. So we can play that game both ways.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's every president, at least in our adult lives.
You know,
we'll just go from President Bush, just from W. It's the same thing. We fund conflict over disaster response.
One of my really good friends this morning, we got into it this morning on Twitter because, you know, I had shared something about like, you know, JD Vance. I shared the ad because ever since that whole Vance statement about the not surviving the election in 2020 for Joe Biden, and when Vance asked him, when Walz asked him about that on the debate and his response, and it's been an ad about this. I don't have seen the ad yet. It's a really good ad. I should look it up right now, actually, if I get a chance.
I'm actually not familiar with this.
No, but my boy and I got into like a little bit of a not a fight, but we got into a little bit of argument this morning on Twitter about that because he brings up the whole idea about like, well, what about Hillary Clinton and Stacey Abrams not conceding an election? I'm like, but they did concede the election eventually. Whether or not they disagree with the results early on, they still concede the election. Donald Trump is now nearly 4 years away, 4 years removed from this whole thing, and he still today has not conceded the election.
Hillary Clinton conceded on election night early enough that protests broke out on the streets of New York, and there was a march to Trump Tower. I know because one of my friends was texting me from within the march. Like, it was at, I want to say,
at 3 a.m.
It was like 3 a.m. that
Eastern time. When I was awake still for that.
Yeah, it was 2 or 3 Eastern because I was I remember vividly. You were one of the people I was texting that night, and I was in Florida, if you recall, because at the time I was living in California, but I was in Florida for a hotel conference, and so I was texting with you, and my friend also from California was in New York, and she was like, apparently, like, Secretary Clinton's conceding. There's marches breaking out. I'm going to Trump Tower to flip this fucker off, something like that.
I'm gonna find it right now. The new ad. I don't see it. Shit. I don't know. It's a great ad though. It's a great ad.
There you go. Plug in. We gotta talk to your producer, man, because that's sloppy prep work. How was that?
Yeah, come on, man. What the fuck, man?
Where's SOT2? What the hell?
Anyway, we got into the fight today about him and I got into it. And like he's like, well, what about them illegitimizing the president as a result? Illegitimizing Trump and this that. I go, it doesn't matter. I don't even care if Trump.
The Electoral College invalidated Trump. Like
knowing that, and I told my buddy, I don't care if Democrats illegitimize Trump, so long as you concede the fucking election. I don't give a fuck. You talk about semantics here. It's a yes or no question. Did you concede or not? You did not, and that's what's wrong with me. I'm sorry.
Secretary Clinton did not proceed to go on a 4-year rally tour saying that she actually won the election and convincing her followers that she actually won the election. Like, what the fuck are we even talking about?
Like the comparison is ridiculous. It's a ridiculous comparison. It really is.
She didn't rally thousands of supporters to the steps of the Capitol to kick the door down and attempt lynching members of Congress and the Vice President of the United States in an effort to halt the certification of an election. Her followers knitted pink pussy hats and held hands in the grass. That's what they did on January 6th or whatever it was, or that when that huge women's march happened.
I found it. It's on my Twitter page.
Hold on. Ad.
Yeah, I found the ad.
That was good vamping to give you time, right?
No, because I had it on my Twitter page earlier. I had to find it because this is where the argument my buddy and I started. Was on this thread. Pick it up right now. Hold on, right here. Here, 1 second. I think it's right here. Hold on. Is it the whole ad here? Yes, the whole ad. Yeah. Hold on. Play from here. 3, 6, 9, and go.
It's really rich for Democratic leaders to say that Donald Trump is a unique threat to democracy when he peacefully gave over power.
He is still saying he didn't lose the election. I would just ask that. Did he lose the 2020 election?
Tim, I'm focused on the future.
That is a damning non-answer.
It is.
America, I think you've got a really clear choice of who's going to honor that democracy and who's going to honor Donald Trump.
It's really
and I keep telling my conservative friends, like, you guys don't get it. Like, I don't give a fuck. Like, it's one thing. It's one thing if you have a Trump on policy, and I get all that. Don't bullshit me with the whole like, oh, but this, all that. No, stop. Okay.
Yeah, and
because now you're insulting me. Now, don't insult me.
And on the surface, real quick, the only thing I would note is that they should have gone darker with the J6 footage. Like, that was super tame footage that they showed. It's like, yeah, it invokes things, but you should have been way more triggered.
Maybe it's in the later on
in
the month.
Yeah, it's lower. That bullet is lower down in the magazine. We haven't gotten to it yet, but yeah, that's the only note I would give is I would have gone darker and more intense with the J6 footage. But that was otherwise a perfect ad. That was like, beautifully cut.
Yeah. Anyway, let's talk about the race. Let's talk about the race itself, though. The race right now. I don't know how you feel about Nate Silver personally.
That's 538, right?
Yeah. It was 538 anymore.
Oh,
he was
okay.
There. This is his numbers forecast as of yesterday. Currently, Harris had a little bit of a bump again, not much of a significant bump, but now she's outside the margin of error now. Now she's up. If his number is correct, it would
margin
be
of error is what, 3.5?
It's 3 normally. 3's the number. It's a margin of error. They always say.
Okay.
She's right now at 3.5 actually. Ahead of Trump right now, currently in the polls, 49.4 to Trump's 45.9. RFK Jr.'s numbers continue to shrink slowly.
God, but RFK had his highs of 15. That's crazy.
It's crazy, but this is why my argument was stood clear about what I said about him having a chance to be able to debate, because again, the people want him to have a chance to talk. You should have a chance to, in democracy, be able to talk and discussion.
Mm-hmm.
Here's the battleground numbers here right now. Pennsylvania, Harris plus 1.3, Michigan, Harris plus 2.1, Wisconsin, Harris plus 2.1, North Carolina, Trump up by 0.4, Georgia, Trump up by 1, and Arizona plus 1.2. I made
so
it. I told this
heat everywhere but Florida, Texas, New Mexico.
But here's the thing, though. I'm gonna get there, because those are the 4 I don't care about, because not gonna. Well, Nevada 1.9. That's the other one. Florida is starting to become competitive now, to the point where I'm wondering if Democrats are going to pour money in here in this last month, because Florida was assumed that Trump has it. And look, I said on my last solo podcast last week, I have no reason to believe that Trump will lose Florida. In fact, I guarantee Trump will win Florida. However, numbers since Biden,
it's his home state, so.
It is, but the numbers have started to move dramatically in Harris's favor now since Biden left the race, where Trump was up 7 points in Florida, I think back in June, July. Trump was now 3.6 now. Look, I think Trump still wins Florida, but the fact is,
I think from Orlando down and along the entire eastern and southern coast of Florida, you have a lot more voters who are probably going to be disinclined to vote for Trump on his behavior. Obviously, you're going to get super entrenched when you're talking about places like Pensacola and Fort Myers Beach and northern Florida. But I do think it's interesting. If it were up to me, I would think they'd want their like the messaging would be for the surrogates to get out there and really amplify how Republican policies have obliterated the housing affordability in Florida, because Florida really, I mean, we've talked about this before when we talk about like sort of the private equity master plan of ruining housing in this country. Florida is really ground zero for that because of Governor DeSantis's, full embrace of complete deregulation and all the fuckery we talk about. So all of the worst practices in housing, rising housing costs, rising in consumer price index, all of that, wages, union busting. I mean, everything that we talk about as core economic issues. And right now, the economy is the number one issue for most voters. So that's what they need to be hitting, is saying how, look, Governor DeSantis and President Trump and their and Senator Scott and Senator Rubio and all of their colleagues are the reason your apartment went from being $980 a month for a 2-bedroom to $1,700 a month in 8 years.
Right. Yeah.
And the reason your grocery costs doubled in 4.
And the only reason I said again, I still think what happened in the Georgia race, the governor's race in 2022, was a little outlier in terms of DeSantis winning Miami. Because again, I told folks it's more so that he brought a lot of like disgruntled Democrats into the coalition because of how COVID was handled, and I think that's why that happened.
Well, within Florida, he was wrong, and he was lying to people, and he was peddling nonsense.
But at the time, people thought
he was successful in getting people to bite his hook.
Right, no doubt about that. Let me see what's on.
Because I think we talked about that when I did my hurricane relief trip in 2021 after Hurricane Ian. I think because we did if I'm not mistaken, we potted like within a week or so of my trip, and that was that was like late stage pandemic, and one of the things we talked about was just like how insane and appalling, even in like Broward and stuff, people were they were drinking the DeSantis Kool-Aid like so bad.
Yeah, until woke became a thing, you know. Hey, explain to me the Eric Adams indictment.
So without going into the specifics, because it's been a minute since I looked at it all, in short, he is being indicted by the Department of Justice for the most basic entry-level crony capitalism kind of nonsense that, frankly, he'd be able to get away with at the federal level, but because he was dumb enough to do it at the municipal level, it like just tripped all the alarms. Like they were text messaging about it. So it's wire fraud, it's taking bribes, it's putting pressure on people. Oh, you're having an issue getting your HVAC signed off to get your final certificate of occupancy for your restaurant. We have this expediting process. You cost $35,000, and you Zelle the money to this account, and all your problems will go away. It's that kind of shit. And then he was basically getting bribed by a bunch of Turkish officials and Turkish Airlines. He was flying all over the country for free. Or all over the world for free. Like he was literally diverting. Like he would need to fly from New York to Paris, but stop in Istanbul because he was getting a comp first-class flight on Turkish Airlines. The big like cornerstone element, if you will, is that the Turkish consulate or some diplomatic building that was a new build that they were trying to do had all kinds of fire life safety issues and couldn't get through its final inspections and stuff, and they basically just made it go away with money. It was like 50 or 60 grand, something like that, and then boom.
But he was already unlikable. Apparently he was already unlikable. Unliked in New York before all this dropped, right?
Yeah. So he got elected.
And why is that? Why is that?
For a bunch of different reasons. So we'll kind of give you the overarching history of Mayor Adams. First of all, he's not a New Yorker. Well, he was an NYPD transit cop that was not well liked even within the department.
Right.
And he, as running for mayor of New York, didn't even live in New York. He lived in Jersey. And then he got a place in Brooklyn once he got elected mayor. But the long and the short of it is he's just a disingenuous douchebag. He's an asshole. He has slashed the city budget, taken hundreds of millions of dollars away from critical social services like homeless services, Mayor's Office of Immigrant Affairs, the libraries, education, food services, all these different things. So like, for example, for the last year and a half or for the last 14 months, something like that, Libraries were closed on weekends until very recently. The New York fucking Public Library closed on weekends all summer. Like that's it.
Like this summer?
Just about, yeah, this past summer, every Saturday, every New York library was closed, except for maybe the main branch because of like the tourism element of it.
Right.
Okay. The main central one on 40 or on 7th or whatever that is, by Bryant Park. But yeah, and raising fares, spending $150 million in NYPD costs to recoup $200,000 in fare evasion. Just all of it. It's he is a glad hander of billionaires and cops. He has robbed from all the civil service departments or social services departments, and he's a dickhead to boot.
Wow.
As our friends in Australia or New Zealand would say, he's a dickhead.
That's good.
It's really that simple.
That was good.
He's just a dickhead.
Yeah. So his political career is done. Even if he gets off this, right? He's done, right? His political career is done.
His ability to vote is done. His ability to exist outside of federal custody
because I saw
next couple of years is probably done.
No, because I saw a thing. On about a week ago.
Unless he's got some big people to roll on, he's going to Martha Stewart summer camp under federal guard.
Hey, but look, even she came back from that and still had a second career. But
well,
no, my thing is though,
Martha Stewart is likable and had been a fixture of American culture for 35 years before she got sent to prison.
True. No, but
she is a thick thread on the fabric of American culture the last 40 years.
I saw an article that was written about a year ago in either the New York Post or what it was, that Eric Adams had ambitions to become president of the United States.
Of course he did.
That's gone. Out the paint. Goodbye.
I mean, not necessarily. Donald Trump's he'll be 33. He'll be 33 convictions fewer than the current Republican.
But Democrats are much more moralistic on that kind of shit than Republicans are.
Of course, and I mean, Eric Adams is no more a Democrat than the man on the moon. Nothing he's done as mayor really, other than go to parties and tell you how much he loves whatever community he's hosting a party for. Like, his actions don't reflect that. Like, I went to a party at Gracie Mansion last year for, my nonprofit job that was like a Pan-Caribbean party at the mayor's house. And oh no, it was a specific Haitian event. It was actually a specific Haitian event. And it was, little Haiti this, love BK, I'm on the block with y'all, blah, 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 blah. And he hasn't done a single thing that has benefited the Haitian community in East Flatbush. Rents are going up, grocery costs are going up, cops' boots still on their neck, immigration shit ain't getting any easier. Homeless services ain't getting any easier. The schools ain't getting any nicer. The calls aren't getting returned from any of the other social services they're asking for. So, Mayor, what exactly do you love from the Haitian community?
What do you do here?
Fucking yeah. It's like, what would you say you do here?
Yeah, exactly.
All right. You love fucking griot and patties? Like, fuck off.
Exactly. 2 more things got out of here. Baseball postseason so far. This is day 3 now. What are your thoughts? Oh God,
sorry.
Dodgers. By the way, I still defend Shohei should be MVP. I mean, people saying, well, it should be Lindor because he plays positions. I don't care. Shohei's too special.
Even my diehard Mets fan friends go, if it wasn't a 60-60 season, basically because he did end up with a 60-60, didn't he?
I'm not sure.
Like that, or 59, 58, something like that. Yeah, whatever.
Even that's still good enough.
Whatever. It was, for all intents and purposes, he had a 60-60 season, and no one's ever had a 50-50. So, okay. And he literally isn't even like, oh, I can't throw, so I'm just going to be a DH and steal a bunch of fucking bases when he had never stole more than like 25 in any previous season, 30, something like that previously. I think Shohei's had an I think he's had an incredible season, and I think his energy in the clubhouse. You know how, like, we've talked about so many different elements of this over the years, like, for example, kind of the yin and yang of clubhouse magic between Chase Utley and Kike Hernandez, of like, Utley being the grounding force and Kike kind of being the lighthearted source of fun, or like, Justin Turner embodied what I'm about to say really well, of like kind of bridging that, of being serious but being fun. I think Shohei Ohtani was a big missing piece on the clubhouse side, if anything else. And if the Dodgers bats have not gone to sleep like they have done previously when they were in the division and have 2 weeks off before they swing a bat again, if their bats come right back to life against the Padres in the division series, it will be everything to do with like Shohei's influence on the club.
Yeah. I agree. I think the Dodgers. I haven't won the whole thing. I just did a
like
prediction thing.
Mookie's on some Kobe shit right now in the film room and the batting cages. When he was slumping a little bit there towards the end of the season, and so no, I think given just to get into like where the Dodgers are at and stuff, I think Shohei Ohtani is the MVP. Lindor had an incredible season. Churrios had an incredible season, but like, you're the best player on the best team. Like, you are the most valuable player in baseball. You took a team that was like already a World Series contender and turned them into a juggernaut. And the Dodgers have been the best team in the National League pretty much wire to wire, save when the Phillies were red hot in the beginning. But if you want to talk about the consistency of the entire season, Dodgers have been the best National League team all year.
Yeah.
And the records bear it out. Home field advantage all the way through the World Series.
How many wins is there again? How many wins?
96, 98, something like that.
That's kind of a letdown, actually, you think about it.
Well, like I say, it was the best record in baseball, but it felt like it wasn't a dominant season.
But a lot of injuries too, right? Was it showing out a little bit early?
Well,
yeah,
he was, but where the Dodgers really got waxed is in the starting pitching rotation.
Right.
They've had 2 all-star rotations worth of pitchers basically spend the bulk of the season on the IL, and it's been this constant rotating door of guys getting sent back and forth between LA and OKC. So they got the rotation locked in. Yamamoto's back for the postseason. So here we go. Padres look unsettlingly good. They looked fantastic against the Brewers. Not against the Brewers. Against the Braves. Their momentum is not something I'm looking forward to seeing in a 5-game series, but given all the particulars that we just said of Shohei's influence on the club, I'm a lot more confident than I would be otherwise.
Finally, get you out of here. One more thing. I think this has become a theme of the show now because we're both watching or rewatching The West Wing. I think you're done already, right? You already done?
Oh yeah, no, I'm already done. And 3 seasons back, I'm about to lap you.
Wait, you watching it again?
I just run The West Wing all the time. It's my white noise. It's like my white noise.
So you do the same thing too. So that's for me.
I have to have TV on or something to fall asleep.
I'm the same way. We're the same way at home
too. But I can't watch like a new episode of a show. Like if a new episode of Bad Monkey has dropped and it's bedtime. Okay, we'll save that for tomorrow morning.
You know what? Save that topic for the next podcast we do. I want to do top 5 white noise TV shows.
But yeah, my rule is that it can't be an episode I've seen. It needs to be something I've seen a gajillion times.
Exactly. Well, of course.
Newsroom or ER.
West Wing's not there yet because I have not finished West Wing.
Yeah,
so it can't be.
Yeah, so it's become my white noise over the last 6-7 years. Like
because the wife
I've run it through at least 20 or 25 times because I'll fall asleep and 6 episodes will run by and I don't care. I don't go back to where I fell.
Yeah. Like, so the next episode we do, next time we go on the podcast, because I have on again before the month is over because obviously the election's coming up. We'll make a list now of your top 5 white noise shows.
Oh, I could do that off the top of my head right now.
Oh, wait, save for next episode. We save for content.
Mm-hmm.
Save for content. You know what I mean? Because I have to make my
list. I don't even need to think about it.
Because I have about 8 or 9. I gotta sift through them and give 5 that I actually prefer to put in there.
I have 3, and then probably 15 or 20 movies that fall in with that. So we'll cover that next time.
Right,
I'm on.
Definitely. That's cool. All right. So we were talking on text about and I think I admitted this to you in the text about a week ago, that I've had this really weird crush on Alison Janney.
Yeah.
Watching her these first 3 seasons now. It's weird.
It's a combination of two things.
CJ.
The show, the character has really okay. Through the first season, I feel like the show is very formulaic and trying to find its lane. And there's sort of there's splitting of a lot of the bad bitch lines between Mandy and CJ. But the problem is when Mandy says things that are snarky and like witty and whatnot, 9 times out of 10, it just comes across like a yapping chihuahua. She was a very unlikable character, hence why she disappeared by, the 10th episode of the second season.
Real quick, for listeners, real quick though, Alison Janney plays the press secretary CJ Craig on West Wing. So that's what we're talking about. Okay,
yes. If you haven't managed to watch the West Wing in the course of the last 25 years, that's what we're talking about.
Continue. Go ahead.
Moving on.
Yeah.
No, but like Mandy's character is to me supremely unlikable, and as a lot of those lines and screen time could then be given to CJ and Donna, for example. CJ's character started to really develop and come into her own, and Alison Janney, being the incredibly gifted and wonderful actress that she is, was able to take all that extra ink off the script and run with it. And you're right. Yeah. Like she's like her flirtation and relationship with Danny Kincannon, the writer, is so adorable.
Love it. I love it.
It's so fucking wholesome. Like it's so funny. They have this great repartee. And you're getting, because you said you're in the 3rd season right now.
Yeah, almost at the end of the 3rd season. Yeah.
So to me, the 4th season is sort of the peak of CJ, in a bunch of different ways. For me, that's like, to quote the Ringer guys, that's like my apex mountain for CJ is 4th season, like re-election campaign CJ. She's starting to really glam up. But also she's come into her own as the position. The administration is doing better. Obviously the administration is struggling a lot more in the beginning. They keep kind of getting kicked in the dick. Now they're starting to like get some judges on the bench and get some bills passed, and they're going to win re-election, so it's like, okay, now they're starting to look like the winning team instead of like the hapless loser. What I will say is that as the show goes on, CJ will continue to get more and more beautiful, like objectively.
Sure, he
but
is.
To me, you hit sort of a crossover point of inevitability by virtue of the fact that as her being a principal actress on the #1 show on television for many years running, that probably has less to do with the character glowing up, and that anyone who spends time in Hollywood gets more beautiful over time, the longer and more consistently you do it. Look at every single character on the show. By season 7, they're all dewier skin, more chiseled jaws, better hair, better makeup, straighter teeth, better bodies. Like there will come a point at the end of the show where you will catch yourself looking at Donna going, Donna got hot.
I'm already there, to be honest with you.
Well, I mean, she's a cutie pie, but like you don't know, like you haven't seen hot Donna yet.
The chick that Mary Louise Thomas plays on the show.
Mary Louise Parker.
Sorry.
Amy.
Amy she's
Gardner.
like that
her character is amazing. Now, granted, Mary Louise Parker more or less plays the same character on every show she's on from 2000 to 2012. Whether because I mean she's
a tease. She's a tease.
I mean, Amy Gardner is basically just Nancy Botwin from Weeds, but with a law degree. Like personality, it's exactly Nancy.
Like she's someone. She's like she teases you into her web.
Like
little by little, and then the whole build of her and Josh Lyman is amazing.
Nancy Botwin is Amy Gardner, got sick and tired of the Beltway and moved to California and decided to sell weed instead of running election pools and torpedoing bills.
You were saying before the show, before with the air, about how like you had a friend that you got into what's the movie? 10 Things I Hate About You.
Oh, 10 Things I Hate About You. Yeah.
And attached to Alison Janney.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And so I had totally forgotten she was the
Yeah.
she was the guidance counselor, the romance novel writing guidance
Yeah.
counselor in 10 Things I Hate About You.
Pulsating.
Yeah. His what was it?
Member.
What was it? What's another word for engorged?
Engorged. I know what she said. I was like, oh my God.
Yeah, and then she's like, get back to Ricardo's tumescent member or something like that. But no, what I find interesting is obviously she had to play like they really had to like dork her up to
Mhm.
play the guidance counselor, and she had like a very silly frumpy hairdo and style and what have you. So that's part of why I think CJ might have been a little extra dorky and made that like glow up all the more noticeable is
Yeah.
because when you look at her character in 10 Things I Hate About You, you go, oof, yikes, they really made her look like a dorky public school employee.
Yeah.
And the reason I'm spending so much time linking those two things is because 10 Things I Hate About You released the same year that the West Wing premiered, 1999. So odds are pretty high. It's like half-assed internet research that I don't have any specific insight on this, but odds are pretty high that she had to cut and style her hair according to what they needed for 10 Things I Hate About You. And as soon as she wrapped filming in Seattle, she got her ass back to Burbank and
Right.
started shooting the pilot for the West Wing.
Because both shows, the movie came out in 99, obviously filmed 98. The show
I
started
was going to
December
say
99
exactly.
as well, too, also. Yeah.
Because reminder for our younger viewers or people who forget, back in the 90s, it took 6 to 8 months to make a film. You were on location for 3 to 6
Mhm.
months, and then it
Yeah.
took another 3 to 6 months potentially to edit, render, market, and release said film. So yeah, like if the film released in spring of 99, that means they were probably filming in 98, and West Wing premiered, I believe, in the fall of 99. It was the fall of
September
99,
99, right.
2000.
99. Yep.
Yeah, because Isaac and Ishmael is the season 3 premiere, right?
I don't know.
Yeah, yeah. So this is a fun fact. I don't know if you clocked this, but the whole Isaac and Ishmael terrorism episode where they're all having their little crash session in the mess with the White House kids and all that.
Yeah.
That was a shoehorn episode, and that's why it has nothing to do with anything, and it's all just the principal characters and nothing's really happening,
Mhm.
is because that was their 9/11 episode.
I figured that, yeah.
So
that.
yeah, season 3 premiered. It was the 01-02 television season, and so
Right.
Isaac and Ish, like they had however many episodes in the can they would have had at premiere time.
Yeah.
And episode 2 that links to the previous seasons. I think it has to do with or no, wait. I can't remember how season 1 ends anyway. Season 2 episode 2 links back to the finale, but season 3 episode 1 links back to season. That's what it was. It was Dolores Lanningham's death and whether or not he's going to run for re-election and MS.
Yeah.
And then the premiere is Isaac and Ishmael, and it just sits on an island completely removed from these massive through lines and cliffhangers from the previous season.
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, so that was basically quickly threw together an episode to drop for 9/11 because TV was like, fuck, what do we do now?
Mm-hmm. So yeah, I'll keep posted.
Got 24 temporarily canceled.
Yeah, my goal was to get this done before the election. That's not going to happen, obviously. Now the pace I'm going, but I will try to get this done before the year is over, before the calendar year is done, because I want to get it done.
I would say try to get at least to like. I'm trying to think. Oh, never mind. It's the beginning of season 5. So Aaron Sorkin's stewardship
Departure?
ends. Yeah, his stewardship ends with I believe the last episode he wrote is the season 5 premiere.
Okay.
That and then
is the show still good though? Even without him, is it still good?
It's good, but it's a different show.
Okay.
Which is important to understand. If you're I didn't know this when I watched it through the first time. And then so when I was like talking to my friend about it, I'm like, yeah, I was really into the first couple of seasons. And, as it's moved along, it's taken this turn. and I don't like Josh Malina's character. He annoys me. And he goes, well, bro, yeah. I mean, the show completely changes after season 4. And I'm like, what do you mean?
Right.
And he goes, well, that's when Sorkin left. I'm like, I'm sorry, what? Did not know any of this because
Makes
I
sense
watched
now.
the show. I
And-
watched
and-
the show
and it
for
all
the
makes
first time
sense.
in like 2014 or 15.
Right.
And so, and then later I've gone back and watched like YouTube and panels and like reunion discussions with Sorkin and the cast and stuff. And, you know, come to find out Aaron Sorkin had until very recently not seen a single episode of the show after what he wrote because he said it was like watching somebody else date your girlfriend.
Even now?
Like the interview that I saw was from probably 2020 or 2021. And he said that was the first time he had seen anything after it. Like he had only just watched some of it, and I don't think he watched all of it.
Right.
But yeah, he said once he left the show, he watched the episodes he wrote, and then once John Wells took over, he had not watched a single episode, and as recently as like 2020, had never seen an episode.
I can understand that.
But yeah, so obviously John Wells, Aaron Sorkin, two very different showrunners, both two very talented showrunners. But yeah, they stylistically they're completely different. So the show is going to take on a very different tone. It's going to become a very different show. And the last season in particular, which is, you know, your transition election, it's kind of a shadow of itself, but it's still good. It's still the West Wing. But yeah, it's like the first 4 seasons really are their own thing.
Yeah.
It's hard to it becomes difficult to judge the show in its totality because it really is 2 different shows in a lot of ways.
Right. All right, Mark. That was fun.
That was fun. That was a good one.
We'll get back to you in a couple of weeks as we get closer to the to democracy being online, obviously. You want to plug? Anything want to plug we got here?
Always, as always, at HAC_US on social media, and visit us hacglobal.org so that you can assist the Haitian American Caucus and all the work that we do with the Haitian community here in the tri-state area, New York, New Jersey specifically. And then, of course, all the wonderful work we're doing in Haiti and the DR. Follow us follow us at HAC_US and at HAC_Haiti. If you want to see everything that goes on, you know, domestically and internationally. And go save democracy, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, go out and vote, man. You know how it is. Mark, good job as always, brother.
Thank you. Oh, I just said, if you'd like to do this again, you know, don't vote for Trump.
Look, I'm not one to tell somebody who to vote for.
I will.
Voting for.
I will.
I know you will. I know.
No, I don't care.
You do what you gotta do.
I've door knocked. I've phone banged at this point. That whole voting is who I vote for is private. No, don't vote for Donald Trump.
Funny,
I'd like to do this again in 2028.
The weird thing for me is that I come from an era when no one knew who you voted for. You just voted and
that's over
now.
That like when I was a kid, it was like I would ask my parents about it, but they're like, don't ask other people this. That's their business. Who they vote for is their business. Don't ask that. Like, don't ask other adults that.
True.
It was a don't kiss and tell kind of thing. I don't know. But yeah, I will unapologetically now say yes. Do not vote for Donald Trump this November because I, for one, would like to vote again in 2028, even if I don't like either candidate.
It's true. Good job, buddy. All right. Thanks, my boy, Marc Francois, again with us for an hour. Great episode. Great segment there with him. One more segment before we get out of here. And we haven't done a question of the week in quite a while on social media, and not a lot of responses this week though. But I'll read the ones we have so far. The question of the week this week, of course, was with a quarter of the way into the NFL season, what has been both the biggest surprise and disappointing team or storyline so far this NFL season? Sean Patrick was actually one of my fellow panelists on Huddle Up podcast, brother of course, Big Jim James' niece. He says the biggest surprise is the immediate effectiveness of Jaden Daniels. That's to me the story of the year right now. Honestly, is that his disappointment is the AFC South. What I thought and hoped would be one of the more competitive and exciting divisions in recent memory appears to be a mere bubbling pile of hot melted garbage, with the Texans seemingly ready to rise out of it on their own. Texans a little sluggish out the shoot, 3-1. Better to be them than being 0-4 Jaguars. Obviously, not figure it out, but the Colts are kind of weird, 2-2. You have the Titans at 1-3, got the first win of the year against the bad Dolphins team without a quarterback. Obviously, Jaguars are 0-4 and looking like they're about to fire freaking Doug Peterson any day now if they lose another game. But yeah, I agree with that on that whole thing. His biggest combination of the two, he said here, is the insane number of big names getting injured 3-4 weeks. It's awful to see so many seasons derailed or deterred this early, and it changes the landscape of the season. That I agree with. And even if I have like personal biasness towards certain teams, with the Giants, and I don't want to see players get hurt. I want my team to beat teams at full strength because it's more value to those wins. Seeing guys like Justin Herbert get hurt and seeing guys like AJ Brown get hurt and lots of the Tua situation. That's terrible. I hate it. I want to see peak players playing at peak levels, and we get the best competition possible. That's what makes sports great. So I agree with that. Thank you, Sean, for that response. Andrew Miller says his big surprise is the Vikings. Sam Darnold is playing extremely well so far. Granted, it's the first time in his career he's had the triple set of good coaching, a competent O-line, and quality skill players around him. He's right. I told y'all. What else? I did a clip of this. Actually, a clip of this on my YouTube feed. But on Huddle Up podcast, I stated that 2024 Sam Darnold is like 1991's Mark Rippon. And, Mark Rippon, of course, being a guy that had he was a journeyman, had a pretty subpar career, but he had one shining light season in 1991 where it all came together. He had a MVP level season. Of course, that team went to the Super Bowl. He won Super MVP. All those kind of stuff. So, yeah, that's the comparison there for me is apropos on that level. So, yeah, Sam Darnold definitely a big surprise here. My best friend, actually, Alex May, says the Dolphins. I'm assuming this is the biggest surprise disappointment here. Dolphins, same old story, different year. So hard to be a fan. I get it, man. I get it. The Dolphins story. Like, I had this team win the AFC East before the year started. I did. And yeah, this is turned to disaster for the Dolphins right now. And yeah, I think it's I don't know. I mean, they need a quarterback. I actually made a comment a couple days ago, and people disagreed with me on this one, but I said that the Dolphins should go after Russell Wilson. If Russell Wilson's healthy, which I found out he's not clear to play anyway, he's actually currently the emergency quarterback for the Steelers. But if Russell Wilson was clear to play, if I'm the Dolphins, I'll go after him. But that's not going to happen anytime soon. So probably not at all. All right, one more thing here. Travis Dart Holly says the big surprise is the Vikings. Of course, that's not a surprise. Everybody agrees with that. Big surprise. Biggest disappointment for him is Christian McCaffrey's injury is the most disappointing. Jordan Mason's quite the silver lining, though. I agree with that. Christian McCaffrey, I got to tell you, I read some things online this morning, and not so encouraging for his future in general. Not just for this year, but also for the future in general for McCaffrey. Like, was it an Achilles injury that he has Achilles issues in both legs now, both feet, whatever. And if you're going out of the country to get work done, this is a serious situation. Like, I'm not going to speculate and say here that we've seen last Christian McCaffrey, but can we speculate at the fact that we may not get the same McCaffrey we've gotten in the last 5 years when healthy? I think that there's something to be said that his future as a top tier running back could be honestly done. I don't want to wish that on him, obviously, but the optics, as I always like to say, look kind of bad, I guess. So anyway, thank you guys for your responses here. Smaller pool of responses, but that will do for this week. So today's episode of the Earnestly podcast. Excuse me. I am on X/Twitter at EJ Christian 7. Check out, guys, my YouTube page at youtube.com/Earnest Christian. If you don't listen to all the episodes, there's clips of this episodes on my YouTube page, of course. I'm on TikTok at Earnest Christian as well, too. We're actually doing well on TikTok also. I can't believe that. I can't believe it's a world. There's a world now where Earnest Christian is actually on TikTok and actually doing content on there. Of course, the content on there is actually clips of the show. I'm not doing anything outside of that because I'm pretty mid. I'm an old guy. I'm old. So that's it for me. Talk to you guys later. God bless y'all. And